Imagine if I told you that there's a single mathematical principle that governs absolutely everything in the universe. Every star that burns, every atom that vibrates, every thought you think, every step you take. A law so fundamental that without it, the universe as we know it simply couldn't exist. And yet, most people have never heard of it. Even more shocking, it was discovered by a woman who was forbidden from teaching at universities simply because of her gender. This is the story of Emmy Noether and her theorem, a discovery so profound that Albert Einstein himself called her the most important woman in the history of mathematics. But here's what's truly mind-blowing about this story. Noether didn't just discover another physics equation. She found something deeper. She found the universe's operating system. Let me start with a question that might seem simple, but will change how you see reality forever. Why doesn't energy just disappear? Think about it. You throw a ball up in the air. It slows down, stops, then falls back down. The energy seems to transform from movement energy to potential energy and back again. But why? Why doesn't it just vanish into nothing? Why are there rules at all? For thousands of years, humans have noticed patterns in nature. The sun rises and sets, seasons repeat. Objects fall down, not up. But we treated these as separate phenomena, individual rules that nature happened to follow. What if I told you that all of these patterns, all of these conservation laws, all of these fundamental principles that keep our universe stable and predictable, they all stem from one single, elegant principle? Emmy Noether was born in 1882 in Germany, into a world that told her she wasn't allowed to think about such things. Universities wouldn't admit women. The academic world was closed to her. But Noether had something that couldn't be stopped by social conventions. She had a mind that could see patterns where others saw chaos. She could find the hidden connections that held reality together. Picture this. It's the early 1900s. Physics is in crisis. Einstein has just introduced relativity, turning our understanding of space and time upside down. Scientists are discovering quantum mechanics, revealing that the smallest particles behave in ways that seem to defy logic. The old, comfortable Newtonian world is crumbling. Physics needs new tools, new ways of thinking. And in walks Emmy Noether with an idea so revolutionary, so fundamentally different, that it would take decades for most physicists to truly understand its power. But here's what makes Noether's story so compelling for anyone interested in wisdom and personal growth. She didn't discover her theorem by accident. She developed a way of thinking, a methodology for finding deep truths hidden beneath surface complexity. And this way of thinking, this approach to understanding reality, it's something we can all learn from. Noether realized that the key to understanding the universe wasn't to focus on the things that change, but to look for the things that stay the same. While everyone else was studying motion, she studied stillness. While others analyzed forces, she analyzed balance. While others looked at differences, she looked for similarities. This shift in perspective, this ability to see the constant within the chaos, this is what led her to one of the most profound discoveries in human history. Let me give you a taste of what's coming. In the next few chapters, we're going to explore how Noether discovered that every symmetry in nature corresponds to a conservation law. If something looks the same after you rotate it, something else must be conserved. If the laws of physics are the same today as they were yesterday, energy must be conserved. If the laws work the same way here as they do on the other side of the galaxy, momentum must be conserved. This might sound abstract, but the implications are staggering. Noether's theorem tells us why energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It explains why electric charge is always conserved. It reveals why momentum is preserved in every collision. But more than that, it gives us a tool for understanding any system, any pattern, any complex situation in our lives. We're going to see how this principle shows up everywhere. In quantum mechanics, where particles pop in and out of existence but still follow Noether's rules. In economics, where certain quantities remain conserved even as markets fluctuate wildly. in personal development, where understanding what remains constant in your life can help you navigate change more effectively. But here's what I find most fascinating about Emmy Noether's story. She faced enormous obstacles. Society told her she couldn't be a mathematician. Universities refused to pay her. Colleagues dismissed her ideas. Yet she persisted, not through force or aggression, but through the power of her insight. She understood something that her critics didn't. She saw a deeper truth about how reality works, and this brings us to perhaps the most important lesson from Noether's life. True wisdom often comes from looking where others aren't looking, from asking questions others aren't asking, from finding patterns others can't see. Noether succeeded not despite being an outsider, but because of it. Her different perspective allowed her to see what the insiders missed. Throughout this exploration, we're going to discover that Noether's theorem isn't just about physics. It's a lens for understanding life itself. It teaches us to look for what remains constant when everything else is changing. It shows us how to find stability in chaos, how to identify the underlying principles that govern complex situations. We'll see how major technology companies use principles derived from Noether's work to build better algorithms. How GPS satellites depend on her insights to give you accurate directions. How quantum computers leverage her discoveries to process information in ways that seemed impossible just decades ago. But more importantly, we'll explore what this means for you personally. How can understanding universal principles change your approach to problem solving? How can recognizing symmetries help you make better decisions? How can the mindset that led to Noether's breakthrough transform your own thinking? By the end of this journey, you'll understand why physicists say that Noether's theorem is more fundamental than Newton's laws, more universal than Einstein's relativity, more essential than any other principle in physics. You'll see why this theorem that most people have never heard of might be the most important scientific discovery in human history. But most importantly, you'll have a new way of seeing the world, a new tool for finding order in complexity, for discovering the permanent within the temporary, for understanding the deep patterns that connect everything in your life and in the universe itself. So let's begin this journey into the heart of reality. Let's discover the universal law that governs everything, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to notice it. Let's learn from a woman who changed our understanding of the universe forever, and see how her insights can change our understanding of ourselves. When you hear the word symmetry, what comes to mind? Most people think of butterflies with matching wings or faces that look the same on both sides. But what if I told you that symmetry is actually one of the most powerful concepts in all of existence? What if the symmetries you can't see are more important than the ones you can? Let's start with something you experience every day, but probably never think about. Right now, as you're listening to this, you're moving through space at incredible speed. The Earth is spinning, it's orbiting the sun. The solar system is moving through the galaxy. Yet the laws of physics work exactly the same for you as they do for someone on the other side of the planet. That's symmetry in action. Here's what's mind-blowing about this. The fact that physics works the same way everywhere isn't just a convenience. It's not just a happy accident that makes science possible. It's a fundamental feature of reality that has profound consequences for everything that exists. Think about it this way. Imagine if the laws of physics changed depending on where you were. If gravity worked differently in your bedroom than in your kitchen. If electrons behaved one way on Monday and a completely different way on Tuesday, the universe would be chaos. Nothing could be predicted, nothing could be stable. Life itself would be impossible, but the universe isn't chaotic. It's remarkably consistent. And this consistency, this sameness across space and time, this is what physicists call symmetry. It's not about visual patterns. It's about the deep structure of reality itself. There are symmetries you can see and symmetries you can't. A circle looks the same no matter how you rotate it. That's rotational symmetry. A crystal has the same pattern repeating over and over. That's translational symmetry. But then there are hidden symmetries. Symmetries in the mathematical equations that describe how particles interact. Symmetries in the forces that hold atoms together. Symmetries in the very fabric of space and time. Emmy Noether was the first person to truly understand what these symmetries meant. She realized that symmetry isn't just a nice mathematical curiosity. It's the key to understanding why the universe has laws at all, why there's order instead of chaos, why anything remains constant in a world of constant change. Here's where it gets really interesting for your personal development journey. Noether's insight about symmetry reveals something profound about how to find stability in your own life. Just as the universe has hidden symmetries that create order, your life has patterns and principles that remain constant even when everything else is changing. The ability to recognize these deeper symmetries, to see what stays the same when the surface details change. This is a skill that goes far beyond physics. It's a way of thinking that can transform how you understand yourself and the world around you. Now we get to something that will change how you see every moment of your existence. Conservation laws. These aren't just abstract physics principles. They're the invisible rules that govern every single thing that happens in your life and in the universe. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why nothing just disappears? Why, when you eat food, the energy doesn't just vanish, but gets converted into movement, heat, and biological processes? Why, when you use electricity, the energy transforms, but never gets destroyed? There's a reason for this, and it's more profound than you might think. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. This isn't just a rule that physicists made up. It's a fundamental law of reality. Every joule of energy that exists today has existed since the beginning of the universe. It changes form constantly, but it never disappears. The energy in your body right now has been stars, has been part of ancient organisms, has traveled across billions of years and countless transformations to be part of you in this moment. But energy isn't the only thing that's conserved. Electric charge is conserved. If you have a positive charge somewhere, there must be a negative charge somewhere else to balance it out. Momentum is conserved. When objects collide, the total momentum before the collision equals the total momentum after. The individual objects might change speed and direction, but the total remains exactly the same. These conservation laws aren't suggestions, they're absolute. They never have exceptions. In the entire history of the universe, in every experiment ever performed, in every observation ever made, these laws have held true. They're more reliable than anything else in human experience. But here's what most people don't realize. These conservation laws exist because of symmetry. This is Emmy Noether's revolutionary insight. Every conservation law corresponds to a symmetry in nature. Every symmetry in nature corresponds to a conservation law. This connection is so fundamental, so universal, that it applies to everything from the smallest particles to the largest structures in the cosmos. Think about what this means for your daily experience. You live in a universe where certain things always remain constant, where change happens according to predictable patterns, where the chaos you see on the surface is actually organized by deeper principles that never vary. This has profound implications for how you approach challenges and changes in your life. Just as the universe has conservation laws that create stability within change, your life has underlying principles and values that can remain constant even when circumstances shift dramatically. The wisdom here is learning to identify what truly needs to be conserved in your life and what can be allowed to change. Understanding the difference between surface-level fluctuations and fundamental principles. Recognizing that some things can transform completely while other things must remain unchanged for the system to maintain its integrity. Now we come to the moment that changed everything, the breakthrough that revealed the deepest secret of how reality works. Emmy Noether's theorem The discovery that symmetry and conservation are two sides of the same coin. Here's the revolutionary insight that emerged from Noether's mathematical analysis. Every continuous symmetry in nature corresponds to a conservation law, and every conservation law corresponds to a continuous symmetry. This isn't just an interesting coincidence. This is a fundamental principle that governs everything that exists. Let me break this down in the simplest possible terms. If the laws of physics are the same today as they were yesterday, then energy must be conserved. If the laws of physics work the same way here as they do anywhere else in the universe, then momentum must be conserved. If the laws of physics are the same, regardless of how you orient yourself in space, then angular momentum must be conserved. This connection between symmetry and conservation was completely hidden until Noether revealed it. Scientists had known about conservation laws for centuries. They had observed symmetries in nature for just as long, but no one had realized that these two phenomena were actually the same thing seen from different perspectives. Imagine looking at a coin. From one side you see heads, from the other side you see tails, but it's the same coin. Noether showed that symmetry and conservation are like the two sides of reality's coin. They're different ways of describing the same underlying truth about how the universe works. This discovery was so profound that it took decades for physicists to fully understand its implications. It revealed that the conservation laws that govern everything aren't just arbitrary rules that nature happens to follow. They're inevitable consequences of the symmetries built into the structure of reality itself. But here's what makes this relevant to your personal development journey. Noether's theorem teaches us something crucial about finding stability and meaning in a constantly changing world. It shows us that the most reliable constants in life aren't the things that never change, but the things that remain the same precisely because everything else is changing. Think about your core values, your fundamental principles, your deepest sense of identity. These things don't remain constant because you keep them locked away from change. They remain constant because they're like conservation laws. They're the symmetries in your life that create stability within transformation. The practical wisdom here is learning to identify the symmetries in your own experience. What patterns remain consistent regardless of your circumstances? What principles hold true whether you're facing success or failure, joy or sorrow, growth or challenge? These are your personal conservation laws, and recognizing them gives you an anchor point that remains stable no matter how much. Everything else changes. Now let's venture into the strangest realm of physics and see how Noether's theorem operates in the quantum world. This is where things get truly bizarre, but also where the power of Noether's insight becomes most apparent. In the quantum realm, particles can be in multiple places at once. They can tunnel through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. They can be connected across vast distances in ways that seem to defy logic. But even in this strange quantum reality, Noether's theorem still holds. Even when particles are behaving in ways that seem to violate common sense, they still follow the connection between symmetry and conservation. Quantum mechanics revealed that reality at its most fundamental level is far stranger than anyone had imagined. Particles exist in states of probability until they're observed. The act of measurement changes what's being measured. Uncertainty isn't just a limitation of our instruments, it's built into the fabric of reality itself. Yet through all this quantum weirdness, conservation laws remain absolute. Energy is still conserved, charge is still conserved. The symmetries that Noether identified still govern how quantum systems behave. In fact, quantum field theory, our most advanced understanding of how the universe works at the smallest scales, is entirely built on the foundation of Noether's theorem. Modern particle physics is essentially the study of symmetries and the conservation laws they create. Every fundamental force, every elementary particle, every interaction between matter and energy, all of it emerges from symmetries in quantum fields. The standard model of particle physics, our most successful theory of reality, is really a catalogue of symmetries and their consequences. But here's what's fascinating from a wisdom perspective. The quantum world teaches us that reality can be far stranger and more complex than our everyday experience suggests, while still following deep underlying principles. The surface-level behavior might seem chaotic and unpredictable, but the fundamental laws remain constant. This has profound implications for how we understand complexity in our own lives. Just because something appears chaotic doesn't mean it lacks underlying order. Just because you can't predict every detail doesn't mean there aren't governing principles at work. The quantum world shows us that uncertainty and law, randomness and order, chaos and pattern can all coexist. The wisdom here is learning to trust in deeper principles, even when surface-level events seem unpredictable. Understanding that complexity doesn't necessarily mean chaos. Recognizing that the most important truths often operate at levels deeper than what we can directly observe. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture. What we've discovered through Noether's theorem is that the universe has something like an operating system, a set of fundamental rules that govern everything from the smallest quantum interactions to the largest cosmic structures. Just like a computer's operating system manages all the different programs and processes, the symmetries and conservation laws that Noether identified manage all the different phenomena in the universe. They ensure that energy flows properly, that matter interacts consistently, that information is preserved, that change happens according to predictable patterns. This operating system runs in the background of everything. You don't usually think about it, just like you don't usually think about your computer's operating system when you're writing an email or watching a video. But it's always there, making sure everything works correctly. The beauty of this universal operating system is that it's both incredibly simple and incredibly powerful. The basic principles are elegant and minimal. Symmetry leads to conservation. Conservation creates stability. Stability allows complexity to emerge. Yet from these simple rules, all the richness and diversity of the universe emerges. Every star that burns, every planet that orbits, every living organism that grows, every thought that forms in your brain, all of it operates according to the same underlying principles. The same conservation laws that govern galaxies also govern the neurons in your head. The same symmetries that determine how particles interact also determine how energy flows through your body. This reveals something profound about the nature of reality. The universe isn't a collection of separate phenomena following different rules. It's a unified system operating according to a single set of principles. Everything is connected not just through space and time, but through the deeper symmetries that create conservation laws. For your personal development, this understanding opens up new possibilities for how you approach challenges and opportunities. If the same principles that govern stars and galaxies also operate in your life, then you can learn to work with these principles rather than against them. The practical wisdom is recognizing that you're not separate from the universe operating around you. You're part of the same system. The same laws that create order and stability in nature can create order and stability in your experience. The same principles that allow complexity to emerge from simplicity in physics can allow complexity to emerge from simplicity in your personal growth. So here we are at the end of our journey through one of the most profound discoveries in human history. We've seen how Emmy Noether revealed the deepest secret of reality, that symmetry and conservation are two faces of the same truth. We've explored how this principle governs everything from quantum particles to cosmic structures. Now the question is, what does this mean for your life? The first and perhaps most important insight is about perspective. Noether's theorem teaches us to look for what remains constant when everything appears to be changing. This is more than just a physics principle. It's a fundamental approach to understanding any complex situation. When your life feels chaotic, when circumstances are shifting rapidly, when you're overwhelmed by change, the wisdom of Noether's theorem suggests looking deeper. What symmetries exist in your experience? What principles remain true regardless of the surface-level turbulence? What conservation laws operate in your personal reality? This doesn't mean trying to keep everything the same. Change is inevitable and often necessary, but it means recognizing that healthy change happens within the context of deeper stability. Just as the universe can evolve and transform while still following conservation laws, you can grow and change while maintaining your core principles and values. The second insight is about finding order within complexity. Noether showed us that even the most complex systems follow simple, elegant principles. The same is true in your life. No matter how complicated your circumstances might seem, there are usually simple patterns and principles operating beneath the surface. Learning to identify these deeper patterns is a skill that can transform how you navigate challenges. Instead of being overwhelmed by the complexity of details, you can focus on the underlying principles that govern how the system behaves. Instead of trying to control every variable, you can work with the conservation laws that create natural stability. The third insight is about recognizing your place in the larger order of things. You're not separate from the universe that operates according to Noether's theorem. You're part of it. The same principles that create harmony and stability in nature are available to create harmony and stability in your experience. This means you can trust in something larger than your individual will or effort. Just as particles don't have to struggle to follow conservation laws, you don't have to struggle to align with the deeper principles that govern reality. When you understand these principles and work with them rather than against them, change becomes easier and growth becomes more natural. The final insight is perhaps the most profound. Emmy Noether succeeded not by fighting against the limitations she faced, but by seeing something that others couldn't see. She found truth by looking where others weren't looking. She discovered universal principles by thinking in ways that others weren't thinking. This suggests that your greatest breakthroughs, your deepest insights, your most meaningful discoveries may come not from following the conventional path, but from developing your own unique perspective on universal truths. Just as Noether's outsider status helped her see what insiders missed, your unique position in life gives you access to insights that others might overlook. The universe operates according to beautiful, elegant, universal principles. These principles created you, sustain you, and offer you a way to understand your place in the larger whole. Emmy Noether showed us that these principles exist. Now, the question is, how will you use this knowledge to transform your understanding of yourself and your world? The universe's operating system is available to you. The conservation laws that govern stars also govern your life. The symmetries that create order in nature can create order in your experience. This isn't just physics. This is wisdom for living. This is the universal law you've never heard of, waiting to change everything.